Zelenskyy claims that Ukraine is prepared to launch a counteroffensive. According to Volodymyr Zelenskyy, Ukraine is prepared to begin its long-awaited counteroffensive to retake land that Russia has captured. The Wall Street Journal was contacted by the President of Ukraine. "We are confident that we will be successful. How long it will take is unknown. To be absolutely honest, it could go in a lot of different directions. But we are prepared to do it and we will." According to Reuters, Zelenskyy stated in the previous month that Ukraine needed to hold off on commencing its counteroffensive until additional Western armored vehicles had arrived. In order for Ukraine to succeed in its ambitions, he has been on a diplomatic offensive to maintain Western support, demanding more military assistance and equipment. In the east, south, and southeast of Ukraine, Russia controls large portions of the country. Some regions of Ukraine have seen a prolonged dry period, which has raised concerns about the potential timing of the counteroffensive. Ukraine has expanded its attacks on Russian weapons stores and supply routes over the last few weeks. In a daily report published on Saturday, the Ukrainian military claimed that Mariinka, in the eastern Donetsk region, was the scene of heavy battle. The report said that all 14 attacks there by Russian troops were repulsed by Ukrainian forces. The UK Ministry of Defence has stated that the whole Russian force is likely to be less flexible in reacting to operational challenges, as a result of the forced deployment of once elite Russian VDV troops to Bakhmut and the removal of Wagner mercenary forces. According to the ministry's most recent intelligence report, Russian VDV, airborne forces, were now present in the damaged eastern Ukrainian city in greater numbers, together with components of the 76th and 106th divisions and two further distinct VDV brigades. In a briefing that was shared on Twitter, the ministry stated, "The VDV has greatly diminished from its elite position prior to the invasion. Nevertheless, it's likely that Russian commanders have tried to keep some of these still reasonably capable troops as an uncommitted reserve. Instead, they were compelled to send them to Bakhmut to hold the front line, which means that the entire Russian army is probably less adaptable in how it responds to difficulties on the battlefield." The defense minister of Indonesia has put out a peace proposal for the conflict in Ukraine, calling for a demilitarized zone and a UN vote on what he called disputed territory. At the Shangri-La Dialogue Defense meeting in Singapore on Saturday, Prabowo Subianto urged the defense and military representatives in attendance to publish a statement calling for an end to hostilities. According to Reuters, he put up a detailed plan that included a ceasefire, in place at present positions of both conflicting parties, and the creation of a demilitarized zone by relocating troops 15 kilometers, nearly 10 miles, from each side's advanced lines. He said that a UN poll should be held to ascertain objectively the wishes of the majority of the inhabitants of the various disputed areas, saying the demilitarized zone should be inspected and overseen by a peacekeeping force sent by the UN. Subianto declared, "I suggest that the Shangri-La conversation establish a means of voluntary declaration pushing both Russia and Ukraine to launch peace talks right away." Indonesia's request comes after President Joko Widodo's trip to Moscow and Kiev last year, during which he volunteered to act as a peace mediator and restart peace negotiations between their leaders. At the time, he also served as the G20 group's chairman. Josep Borrell Fontelles, a high representative and vice president of the European Commission of the European Union, said at a panel discussion that if military support for Ukraine ended, the war would finish fast but that foreign aggression would reassert its sovereignty. "We can't cease militarily assisting Ukraine because we don't want the peace that comes with capitulation." Borrell stated, "The stronger the peace." A 10-point peace plan put forth by President Volodymyr Zelenskyy calls for Russia to withdraw all of its troops from Ukraine. Igor Zhovkva, the country's top diplomat, claimed that Ukraine had no interest in a truce that secures Russian territorial gains.